James Pawson back once again with some social, political philosophy, and also a little bit of metaphysics, and that word gets a bad rap amongst the academics, metaphysics, because in folk terminology people tend to use it to mean something more like paranormal stuff. But as a matter of fact, we're going to be kind of doing both types of metaphysics here today. So if you're like me, you're attracted to looking at chaotic systems, gazing into the abyss, if you will, a term that I use so frequently. That's why politics is the main topic covered on this channel, but also cultural issues like art, fiction, and even alien abduction phenomenon. All of these things beg us to bring a little order out of some deeper madness that lays beneath, that is, out of the human mind and whatever medium that the human mind exists in is. Well, I've come to realize, though, that human affairs, like politics, are not truly chaotic. Politics is ever bounded by ideology and historicity and all the many causal relationships that give rise to belief and behavior. This is merely complex, not truly chaotic, if anything in this universe can truly be said to be absolutely random and chaotic. So, let's call our social and political landscape quasi-chaotic then. Well, it is chaotic enough for it to, be tricky to deal with and confusing to work our way through the political landscape, and especially through all the goddamn lies of the mainstream media and all the narratives that they spin and all this. And that's why we require people like Styx Hexenhammer 666 and Mark Dice and Black Pigeon Speak, Sargon of Akkad, Computing Forever, Bill Still with the Still Report, yes, even Alex Jones, Pockets of the Future, all the people on the Rebel Media. All of these people are kind of like our guides through the chaos of politics and to some extent social issues and culture at large. I like to think of politics as kind of like being in the forest. When we start to work through politics, it's like we're walking through a forest that we're not familiar with. Again, it's not truly chaotic, it's just that we may not be accustomed to the landscape in which we are, in which we find ourselves, and that's why it can be useful to have a guide, or at the very least, a path to follow. And again, people like Styx Hexenhammer and all those others, which I talk about in my channel trailer, Top 10 Anti-Libtard Channels, they're like our guides through this complicated forest. And the thing about it is, though, I start to get a little bit bored, dare I say it. It's not that there aren't ever new circumstances, new developments arising. It's just that people like us, if you're a subscriber of mine, and if you follow all those channels that I mentioned and ones like it, the patterns become boring. We start to see the patterns. You just type Trump into Google and you see the sort of shit that comes up. The mainstream media foisting the same narratives. Oh, it's Russia, 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 Russia. Okay. You start to get sick of it, and that's why, in a way, sometimes I feel myself kind of checking out on politics. Because, earlier this week I did a couple of my recent videos, I mentioned MGTOW, and I noticed that rubs people the wrong way, MGTOW. Okay, ignore the whole thing about gender and feminism and men and not getting married and all that. Just think about the going your own way part of it. There's certain things with men and women's relationships nowadays on the modern landscape, the modern social landscape, the modern cultural landscape, that not just potentially very deleterious for any man, but also, in a sense, boring. Certain patterns of behavior have arisen. And yes, I understand not all women fall into those hardcore bullshit feminist patterns, but the patterns are there, and they're common. And in the same way, the mainstream media, using the repetition effect, using their arsenal of cognitive fallacies, to just push the same narrative over and over and over, in exactly the same way that those top 10 anti-libtard channels I mentioned, and myself, and others like me, and others like these guys, offer narratives. And they're offering a trail through the forest of the social and political cultural landscape. The mainstream media offers its narratives as well, and we've become bored with them. They've become trails so well worn, and I get really fucking bored with it. So, let me get back onto my script before I go off on too much of a digression. So again, human affairs like politics are not truly chaotic. Like a forest, we need our trailblazers. We need the people to lead us through sometimes, or sometimes we become so accustomed with what we are seeing, especially coming out of the mainstream media and so on and so forth, we kind of start to get a little bit bored. So that's why I occasionally lose interest in politics, has been the case in the past week. You know, there's a lot of new developments in the so-called Trump-Russia case, this bullshit thing. But still, there is no real proof that Trump and Russia have any real connection. But through the repetition effect, that connection has become the perceived, and the mainstream media is blazing a trail that too many people are now starting to follow. Styx Hexenhammer and myself and many others saw this relentless trend, this relentless pattern, this tenacious phenomenon of anti-Trumpism rising months and months ago. When John McCain and cronies and his crew and people that are in cahoots with him fell for the fucking absolutely absurd, false, troll-invented narrative of Pissgate. And the CIA fell for it, and the mainstream media picked it up and ran with it. And of course, I did a video where even the fucking Communist Broadcast Collective up here in Canada, CBC, actually picked the story up and ran with it and called it highly credible. They called Pissgate highly credible. So way back then, we started to realize, okay, here's the pattern. It's arising. The endless maelstrom of anti-Trumpism is the name of my video about it. And it's here to stay. And that hasn't changed. And it's gotten boring in a sense, because it's just the same old fucking shit over and over. So, I kind of envy channels that have the ability to find a trail and stick on it and relentlessly keep kind of fighting against it, or fighting, there's other narratives that are so relentless, and not all narratives are false. There's the true narrative of Islam and terror attacks, and the violence and intolerance that is built into Islam. Once you've read the Quran, you know this. And we see then the relentless counter-narrative from the mainstream media, they weren't really Muslims, we don't know if it was Muslims. Anyways, it gets boring. And I really envy channels that can stick on a topic like that and keep fighting. And just have that one topic, because I think one of the reasons maybe why I lose subscribers every time I post a video is because every single one of my videos goes to a different topic. There's only 4 or 5 different topics that I really cover, but I think people are in the habit of, if they subscribe to a channel, they want an anti-Islam channel, or they want an anti-feminism channel, or they want a pro-feminism channel, or a pro-Islam channel, which is the mainstream media, or they want an anti-Trump channel, or whatever. They want a channel that sticks on whatever narrative or counter-narrative, factual or otherwise, invented or otherwise, and I just can't do that because I get fucking bored. And I even get bored with dealing with those relentless narratives that have been established. The patterns are concretized. And even though politics is quasi-chaotic and social, and the social and cultural landscape that we constantly try to traverse, this abyss that we're gazing into, is, quasi-chaotic, and there should be enough there to keep somebody like me interested. I'm sorry, sometimes I check out. Sometimes I go, not MGTOW on politics, but the Tao part, the GTOW part. I just go my own way sometimes. And that's something that others who've been into politics have done. A lot of you may be aware of the late, great, damn my mouth for saying that. Jinx, I hope not. Art Bell, he's still with us. He's still such a great man. He's really like a de facto mentor to me, and I'm sure many of you listening love Art Bell as well. Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. And it's interesting, and I say like a mentor to me because, Art's... Every goddamn night of the week, in the middle of the night, there was that voice that I could listen to. And that so much informed my whole way of being in the world and what I do on YouTube. Talk radio. And he was our trailblazer. He was our guide, leading us through, wait for it, the paranormal, ghosts, aliens, witchcraft, psychic phenomenon. Oh, fuck. Now, a whole bunch of you have probably just checked out on me. Oh, fuck. I don't want to deal with this. This is going to be one of those videos that he does. Look, one of the things, I should have stated this at the top of the video, but one of the things that I want to help people understand is why it is that some of us go from being into politics to being into the paranormal, or why the two aren't mutually exclusive in some sense, why the two are bound up, why there is this metaphysical connection between the two, why there is this metaphysical, in the academic sense of the word, connection, or maybe it's just an ontological or epistemological connection, whatever, between the paranormal and politics. And that is our lust for chaos. Because a lot of people, or some people, may not be aware of this, but Art Bell originally was a political pundit, of the same sort of ilk as Rush Limbaugh. He's friends with Rush Limbaugh. But sometime in the early 90s, Art stopped doing politics for whatever reason and just started his wonderful, was it 5 hours every single night? 5 hours? 1 a.m., 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 hours every night. Instead of talking about politics, he slid into talking about aliens and alien abduction phenomena. Why would this happen? Why would somebody who was into something that was so grounded and down to earth as politics, something that's merely, I'm saying, quasi-chaotic, go into something so highfalutin and out there? Why do I do it? Because we get bored. On some basic level, I know you'll never fully understand all the ins and outs of ideology and human belief and human behavior and historicity and all of it. You'll never fully understand all of the rules. You'll never fully understand how all the pieces move on the chessboard of the cultural landscape of politics. But on some deep level, just like with playing chess, even though you're not a grandmaster, you get kind of bored with it. And there's something so invigorating and so interesting about talking about the paranormal, and freeing and liberating even. So somebody that I've talked about with some fair frequency, or in the past, is Whitley Strieber. And Whitley Strieber's alien abduction experiences, which he published to his books, specifically Communion, which came out in the very late 1980s or the early 1990s, really popularized the notion of alien abduction experiences. And it's like in the 1950s there was a whole spate of UFO sightings and so on and so forth, and then it kind of died down for a while. And then in the late 1980s and through the mid-90s, there was all of this stuff all of a sudden about alien abductions and again, UFO experiences, UFO sightings. And, that's just an interesting thing to note. But Whitley Strieber was really my gateway into this stuff, well before I was really interested in politics. As a child, of course, I read Communion, and fascinating. Only recently, though, in the past couple weeks, I have discovered a lady named Karla Turner, the late, great Karla Turner. And the reason why I find her so fascinating is because she offered a very different set of conclusions regarding alien abduction experiences. And, geez, James, what is this digression that we're on right here? Stay with me here. Stay with me. Something that she realized was, when you compare the experiences reported by people like Whitley Strieber to others like Travis Walton, to others like Barney and Betty Hill, when you start looking at the thousands upon thousands of reported cases of alien abductions, you start to realize it's fucking chaotic. It doesn't make any sense. One alien tells one abductee this, another one says, we're here to help you save humanity, and the other one says, no, we're here to fucking destroy humanity, and other ones come off as evil, others come off as good, and sometimes the abduction experiences are just downright nonsensical. They have a dreamlike quality to them. And Karla Turner is the only one who I've seen do a really thorough, let's say, phenomenological approach to the alien abduction phenomenon, and to even go so far as to say, yeah, maybe it isn't real in the sense that people think that we're saying it's real, but it's real in the sense that there is a phenomenon where many people report this, right? Even if there aren't fucking interstellar travelers coming here and taking us away or whatever, if it's not real in that sense, there is still the phenomenon of people reporting it, and her conclusion regarding it is that it's not good. It's not good. You know that scene from Independence Day when the aliens are coming and you got a bunch of fucking hippy-dippy retards, a bunch of fucking libtards standing up on a rooftop going, yay, yay, welcome aliens, yay, and they get fucking exploded, they get fucking vaporized, right? Karla Turner's conclusions regarding the alien abduction phenomenon is that it's not good. There's something truly fucked up about it. And the more I listen to her, and I'm going to give some links to some speeches that she's given, the more I listen to her, the more I start to think, her analogy is, if cows could really understand what we do to them, the way that we treat them, the way that we think about them, the way that we farm them, and the way that we execute them and eat them, if cows could truly grasp that, they would think we were evil motherfuckers. But cows can't grasp that because cows don't have the cognitive capacity to perceive reality on the same level that human beings do. By analogy, what these so-called aliens, whatever the fuck they are doing, looks truly chaotic. We cannot... It's ineffable. It is strange. It is hard to grasp because, it's all these crazy things going on with the reptoids. That's the thing. A lot of people think that we're just talking about the communion alien. But as a matter of fact, there's a whole wide range of different entities. We got the reptoids that seem to be into rape, and they're very violent. They tend to be. We've got these more like, I guess that's a reptoid. We got the greys, we got the mushroom men, we got the little robots, we got the fucking, sometimes they wear hats. Even in Whitley Strieber's Communion, he talks about seeing them fucking wearing like pantomime stuff that you would see in a carnival. It's all very strange and dreamlike and chaotic, and I think you can start to understand the attraction for somebody like me when we start to talk about what the fuck are these things, what the fuck is cattle mutilations, what is crop circles. Oh, James, that's all been explained away. It's like, crop circles are just some drunken guys with a board and some string. I saw a documentary on it. No. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? There are some of these things that are truly inexplicable, right? And even if they weren't, again, why would people even be doing it? What possessed people to start doing it in the first place? There's always something to be said about the phenomenon. So what the hell am I going on about? How did we get from politics to the paranormal? Because some of us got fed up. Some of us go MGTOW on politics instead of... We check out on it because it starts to get so fucking mind-numbingly boring. The same narratives, the same cognitive fallacies. Once you've become thoroughly familiar with the patterns that have arisen, with the narratives that get touted over and over, with the same cognitive fallacies that get used and abused over and over and over, you sort of kind of start to check out, and you start to look for things that are more chaotic. A true abyss, a true, not quasi-chaotic, but something that is complex beyond all reckoning. And when you start to look into the alien abduction phenomenon, you start to really grasp, you start to really try to grapple with questions that are so much bigger than the mere human experience. And if aliens are real, be they from Zeta Reticuli or transdimensional beings, one thing that seems obvious is that the logic that governs their actions, the ways that they interact with us, make no fucking sense. And that's one of the things that the skeptics always point to. James, why would they do this? What interest would they have in cutting up cows or in making patterns in fields? Why wouldn't they just come and annihilate us? Why wouldn't they do this? Why wouldn't they do that? And it's like you're imposing your human logic on something that is not human. Don't you understand? It's like a cow looking at a human going, why doesn't he come here and eat the grass with me? I don't get him. If there are, quote-unquote, superior, I don't want to say that, if there are extra-dimensional beings whose very grasp on reality is premised on a way of being in reality that is completely foreign to us because it has access to other dimensions or other, I don't know, even if it is from another planet. And I'm highly dubious on the notion that these aliens conducting these fucking experiments and abductions on us if even that's what it is, are doing it on some actual physical level that we can grasp, and I'm highly dubious on the notion that they're merely from some other planet, right? And attempting to grasp how the chaos of the absolute other, of the absolute alien. And again, stop tying your own human baggage to the word alien. Soon as you say alien, little green man from Mars. No, alien means that which is other. Which is outside of our kin. That's what alien means. And that's why we could be talking about trans-dimensional beings or God knows what else. God knows what they are. But when you try to apply human logic to whatever they are, they must be laughing. It's like a cow gazing at the rancher. Every once in a while, I'm sure every rancher out there has looked at the cow and kind of laughed and thought to himself, you dumb motherfucker. And that's why when you start to look at Karla Turner's own experiences and the wide survey of experiences that she did conduct before she died under what I would call strange circumstances at the tender young age of, I believe, 48. You start to look at the surveys that she's conducted, and you start to see profoundly confusing, non-logical, in the human sense, non-logical behaviors and actions and experiences from these so-called aliens. So, yeah, and now she's dead, and she's one of the few people that said, don't trust them. And one of the interesting things that she said was to react to them if they, you wake up paralyzed in your bed, and they're fucking there standing there looking at you. She said, eventually you have to bring yourself to overcome your fear, because fear is an internalized thing, and fear paralyzes. And come to anger. Come to anger. Because anger is externalized, and anger causes action. And when you become proactive instead of reactive to these motherfuckers, and by analogy, we can think about that too in terms of even politics. Do not be merely reactive. Do not just sit back and suck it in. Become a trailblazer. Become somebody who cuts a swath through new parts of the forest. Become angry at the fucking lies of the mainstream media and the leftists and the libtards and the Muslim apologists or Islam apologists and the feminists and the social justice warriors and all these fucking cocksuckers. They're just like aliens. They're assholes. They do terrible things to people. They do terrible things to our mind. They do terrible things to our psyche. And they can paralyze us. They can confound us. They can frustrate us on this journey, this grand journey that we are on as human beings, and especially autodidacts and people who are interested in education and who find learning about new things exhilarating and exciting. We become frustrated and confounded by the same old repetition that comes out of the mainstream media, the same old bullshit narratives. We become confounded and frustrated, and we start to look for something which is new, because we seek new information. We are explorers, in a sense. We are explorers. And that's why it behooves us sometimes to become angry and say, no, I will not sit back and let you abduct me and let you take me away and carry me away on your path, on your trail, down your fucking rabbit holes, whatever the fuck bullshit. And that's funny because, some of these abductees say that there absolutely are. The aliens are in cahoots with human beings, and the military-industrial complex, according to a lot of abductees, are involved with these fuckers because they'll have human beings in military uniforms and the men in the black suits. And yes, we're going quite X-Files here. And even Twin Peaks David Lynchian here, where there are factions of the United States government or even the deep state, dark black hat operations that are involved with these cocksucking aliens that come and fuck with us and abduct us. There is a similarity here. The analogy goes a little bit deeper than merely they're lying to us and they're trying to sweep us away and lead us up a garden path in some sort of ideological or, political sense, but even in a physical sense, and there's a physical connection between the two. So, I don't know if that was a little bit too cryptic and hardcore, but that would actually be ironic, because dealing with the cryptic, gazing into the abyss, for me it's exhilarating. And I think that if you're a subscriber of mine, you find it exhilarating too. And You know, there's this deeper underlying thing about MGTOW, which goes beyond feminism and gender and all this stuff, but also going our own way and being truly individualistic. And being truly individualistic and finding new paths to conquer. Well, I guess that's about what I had to say about it. You know, it's funny. Actually, no, that's not quite it, because all of this falls kind of under the phrase of what I call xenophilosophy, and that's something that I actually wanted to do. Philosophy of the other. Attempting to understand the non-logic of terrestrials, non-human beings. I called this xenophilosophy. And I ended up writing a movie script called Xenophilosophy, which was semi-autobiographical, and I ended up going into dealing with xenophilosophy through the lens of music and art, and this is something that I've touched on in the past too. And you'll notice that a lot of the times that I attempt to gaze into the abyss and to blaze a trail, I use so many analogies, and this gets into the realm of being poetic. You know, you saw my recent video about autopilots, and you've seen the one about get to Mars, and chirality is an analogy, is an analogous attempt to cope with the complex or quasi-chaotic nature of politics and sociology and all these sorts of things. But in the past, even though I wanted to become an academic philosopher, well, I guess I have in some sense. Well, no, I'm not an academic anymore. But even though I wanted to do xenophilosophy at the academic level, what I ended up naturally doing was, and this is on my old channel, doing it via art, and in kind of a chaotic way, in a very chaotic way. I was attempting to deal with the chaos of reality, and the chaos that would be intrinsic in attempting to deal with xenophilosophy, the logic of the non-logical, or the ineffable. And so I'll give a link to that, and and I think my crowning achievement on that channel, and my favorite thing, is this song that I wrote. Yes, I did. I used to write music, and this video that I put together called The Datum. The Datum. All of the information and everything is funneled through into a piece of music and a little video essay, which was my attempt then at xenophilosophy in an extra academic way, in a non-academic way. And arts and philosophy and fiction, I've talked about this a lot, they all marry each other. They are all human endeavors that attempt to excite. There's something exhilarating about gazing into the abyss. And, again, looking at politics, I go on my Twitter feed, especially over the past week, and I think this has something to do with spring, the fact that it's warming up out there and everything. Looking at politics has felt a little bit mundane recently. And that's why going more now, and I'm not going to stay just doing paranormal stuff, and I'm not going to go too deeply into xenophilosophy on a continual basis. I will bounce around back and forth, as I always have done on this channel. But it's funny, just in preparing for today's video, I decided to type in the word xenophilosophy into Google just to see if anybody has stolen my thunder, and yes, indeed, somebody has. Somebody has an academic philosopher with some very rather dry philosophy, I would say, or academic philosophy, is attempting to do alien philosophy, and it's fucked. I was just skimming through most of it this morning. Well, okay, he's talking about Wittgenstein, he's talking about phenomenology, he's talking about Heidegger, all of these things that I'm interested in, and it is intensely academic, so I'm going to have to really read it through and get myself back into the academic mindset in order to do a proper response to this person's, frankly, quite brilliant academic discourse that they've done on xenophilosophy. So I'll do that at some other point, because, again, I'm more freewheeling and chaotic on this channel, and I have not been bound by the sorts of vernacular terminology and jargon and concepts that are only truly accessible to somebody who has done academic philosophy. I've kind of separated myself from that because it's liberating to not be confined by the sorts of words that so many of you which subscribe to me will not be familiar with, frankly, and no offense intended, because at the end of the day, as I've said in the past, academia is 99% bullshit, but some of it is is worthy. Thanks a lot for clicking and watching. We're right up on half an hour here, so I gotta stop recording so I can post this on VidMe. Please click subscribe, like, and comment, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.